This episode is a revised version of one from 2019. I've rewritten the story and descriptions based on new science and discoveries. I hope you enjoy. You are standing in shallow water that reaches your ankles. Your boots sink slightly into a sandy mud mixture that swirls dark and dirty around you. Nearby, the twisted roots of a mangrove shrub dig deep into the silt. The air is hot and humid. Sunlight beats down. Overhead, the shadows of small, winged beasts flit past. Dragonflies buzz through the air, alighting on branches and skimming the surface of the water. Shallow ripples follow them, stirred up by tiny fish and serpents winding through the shallows. The land is vibrant and teeming with life. If you didn't know better, you might think you were in the Nile Delta, that vast green expanse that now dominates Egypt's north. But you're not in the Delta. You're not even in the Nile. Technically, you are in the Sahara. Our story today takes place 100 million years ago. We are here to meet the inhabitants of a land that would become Egypt. This far back in time, the world is a radically different place. For a start, the Nile River is nowhere to be seen. The Sahara Desert is also missing. Instead, there is a vast, shallow sea. 100 million years ago, much of North Africa was submerged beneath the waters of Tethys. This was an ocean that covered land from Spain to Malaysia and everything in between. As a result, the region that became Egypt, Libya, and much of the Middle East was quite different to the sandy wastes of today. Instead, this region was more coastal, covered in tidal flats, mangroves, and shallow, fresh waterways. The climate was closer to tropical with high humidity. Flora and fauna were abundant. Standing in the waters of this coastal environment, you are keenly aware that you're not in your own time. A booming cry echoes across the swamp. Turning towards it, you wade further inland, away from the coast. The trees are taller here, more like ferns. You notice that some of them are bare, as if stripped of their leaves. Passing a thicket, the forest opens up, and you see the cause of that defoliation. Amid the stands of ferns and mangroves, tall necks rise gracefully. Huge bodies lumber between the trees, and extended tails swish back and forth in the heat. These enormous animals are sauropods, mighty plant eaters, that are among the largest creatures to ever walk the earth. You've come across a species that scientists call Paralititan, or tidal giant. They stand on four legs, with long raised necks leading up to a small head. The Paralititan are enormous, measuring 26 meters or 85 feet from head to tail. At 60 metric tons, 65 imperial, they are giants, some of the largest sauropods ever recorded. Supporting all that growth demanded a lot of energy. Paralititan probably had to consume about 40 kilograms of plant material every single day. That's 88 pounds. The diet of ferns and mangrove leaves was dense and tough, but they had a strange way of eating. Sauropods like these had short, peg-like teeth, which they used to strip the foliage from a branch in one dragging bite. Swallowing the mouthful whole, rather than wasting energy chewing, they could drag huge quantities from a tree in a relatively short time. As you watch, the Paralititan carve a swathe through the prehistoric forest. The animals move in a herd, and you notice a small group of juveniles among the adults. These infants are still immense, several meters long, but even at that size they are vulnerable. The herd sticks together. Perhaps one or two keep watch, especially when it was time to drink. Dipping their heads down to shallow pools of water, the titans gulp deeply. The lookouts keep a sharp eye. Here at the water's edge, predators may lie in wait. The trees are quiet though, the herd drinks, and no one bothers them. As they slake their thirst, the leaders call out, signaling to move on. The Paralititan turn away from the pools and head back among the treetops. The day's feeding is far from done. The group rumbles on. Do you follow them, or seek out other animals? The tracks of Paralititan are enormous. It should be easy to find them later if you wish. And with this many sauropods around, especially with the juveniles, there's every chance that a predator is lurking nearby. Speaking of which, what's that? As you move through the trees, you glimpse a shadow. Standing on two legs, it has long arms, an extended tail, and a sharp, tooth-filled snout. This obscure creature seems like a dangerous companion, and you don't have any time to hide. The beast is called Deltadromeus agilis, or fast delta runner. It is a fearsome creature with long legs, like a sprinter. If it gave chase, the animal would probably be on you before the scream escaped your lips. Its weight would slam you to the ground. Long arms, tipped with claws, would rip at your body. The jaws would clamp over your head or neck, driving deep with a savage bite. The Deltadromeus is about 8 meters in length, or 26 feet, and 1,000 kilograms, slightly more than 1 imperial ton. However, it's possible the animal reached lengths of up to 12 meters, or 40 feet, putting it in the same length range as the famous tyrannosaurs. That's just the length, though. Compared to those hulking animals, Deltadromeus was slender and swift. Perhaps it caught smaller prey like rodents, or scavenged the remains left by larger, heavier animals. Certainly, for the sauropods of this region, Deltadromeus probably wasn't a threat to adults, but it might snatch a juvenile here and there. They would need to be wary, as do you. Deltadromeus moves swiftly through the trees. For a moment, it seems it may have spotted you, but the animal carries on, following the footsteps of the Paralititan. Presumably, the animal is hoping to snatch a juvenile, something small it can isolate and attack. As it goes, the Deltadromeus is silent, beginning its hunt. You breathe a quiet sigh of relief. The animal is deadly on any day, and you didn't even notice it before it would have been too late. You walk on for some time, skirting the edges of the mangroves. To one side, the tall fern trees dominate. To the other, deep channels and waterways wind through the swamps. The sound of insects is quieter here, but you still see the dragonflies and beetles crawling through the growth. Overhead, the shadow of the pterosaurs flit by as they hunt for bugs to snack. As you walk, you are struck by the sheer abundance of life in this region. Thinking back, or is that forward, to the wastes of Sahara, the swampy expanse of this prehistoric landscape is like another planet. Animals, foliage, and water abound. It is a remarkably productive environment. Following the river, you notice the fish that flit through the waters. They have long bodies, with 6 large fins arrayed along the edges. These are Morsonia, a type of coelacanth that filled the freshwater swamps. They are big boys, about 3.5 meters long, or 11 feet. Gliding lazily through the deeper channels, the Morsonia feed on crustaceans, snails, and smaller fish. They're no harm to you, unless you got in the middle of a couple thrashing about, but it's best to stay clear. The Morsonia are a favored prey for some larger creatures. Walking on, you soon pause as squawks and cries fill the air. Glancing up, you see shadows flitting past. The flap of wings echoes across the treetops. Pterosaurs. The shallow seas and mangrove swamps of North Africa provide abundant hunting grounds for small flying reptiles. Not dinosaurs themselves, these animals are nonetheless a key part of the ecosystem. As you pause, a flock of tiny bird-like reptiles descend onto the mudflats. Their heads are just 10 to 20 centimeters long, with straight, narrow beaks. These are Leptostomia, or slendermouth, a minuscule breed of pterosaur common in North Africa. The pterosaurs gather on the ground to poke at the mud. Using those long beaks, they seek small insects and creatures living below the surface, and perhaps crustaceans similar to mollusks or crabs. Flocking together for safety, the Leptostomia begin their feast. You watch, quietly, as they chirp and squawk at each other. The mangrove is calm, but for the hum of insects and the fluttering of the pterosaurs. For a moment, it all seems tranquil. A shadow flits past, and suddenly, pandemonium erupts in the glade. Sprinting from the trees, the Deltadromeus has returned. It bursts forth, its long legs launching it at the gathered pterosaurs. With a snap, the Deltadromeus seizes one of the Leptostomia. Its teeth shear through the pterosaur's minuscule body. A single bite does the trick, and the hunter devours its prey. The other Leptostomia scatter, taking to their wings as swiftly as they can. Disappearing into the distance, their cries slowly fade away. The Deltadromeus finishes its meal, pauses briefly to scratch at its snout, and then wanders off into the forest. In just a few moments, the chaos has subsided, and the glade resumes its calm. Once again, it all seems tranquil. The peace is broken by a low rumble that echoes through the glade. A deep hiss, as if from an enormous crocodile, fills the air. You can't tell where it originates, but you understand the meaning. It's time to find a tree. You scramble for the mangroves and clamber up the branches, away from danger, as high as you can go. Climbing to the very top, you peek out among the leaves, searching for the source of that sound. There, across the river, you spot it. An enormous creature, walking on two legs, emerges from the tree line. It has a long, strangely shaped body and an enormous snout filled with sharp teeth. This is North Africa's apex predator, a monstrous beast of claw, fang, and spine. It is called the Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, or Egyptian spine lizard, is one of the largest carnivores to ever walk the earth. Possibly the largest in terms of sheer length. At 14 meters, or 46 feet, and weighing 7.5 metric tons, 8.2 imperial, the Spinosaurus is an imposing creature. Walking along the riverbank, the animal seems to be hunting. From your perch in the top of the mangrove trees, you are not entirely safe, but the animal has not noticed you, or at least it doesn't care. Staying quite still, you study it from afar. The Spinosaurus' head is long, with a narrow snout and straight cone-shaped teeth. On the top of its cranium, the animal bears a prominent crest or protuberance, like a miniature ridge along the middle of its brow. That crest is relatively small compared to other dinosaurs, but it's distinctive, giving the animal a curious profile. If you looked Spinosaurus directly in the face, it might resemble a hybrid of crocodile and bird. For you, visiting from ancient Egypt, it must seem genuinely bizarre. Perhaps the great god Sobek, working with Jehuti or Thoth, had some hand in this animal's design. Past the head, the creature has a long, muscular neck that curves down towards the body in a kind of S shape. The body itself is remarkably narrow considering the animal's size. You might expect something bulky, like the famous tyrannosaurs. Spinosaurus, however, is more on the slender side. It is still a mighty beast, make no mistake. Along the back, there is the most distinctive feature. A row of bony spines emerging from the vertebra extend upwards out of the body. Between them, layers of flesh form a thin sail. The purpose of this sail is still debated among paleontologists. It might be for display, rippling with bright colors to ward off rivals or entice potential mates. Perhaps it helped to regulate body temperature, absorbing or radiating heat to keep the animal warm or cool respectively. However you imagine it, the spines of the Spinosaurus are its most distinctive feature. Notably, those bony protrusions do not stop at the back. Indeed, it seems that Spinosaurus also bears a ridge along its tail. The spines carry on, perhaps less sharply, forming a sort of paddle-like appendage. The use of this tail is also debated, more on that a bit later. but combined with its large sail, the paddle-like tail makes the Spinosaurus one unusual animal. On the edge of the waterway, the creature now stands still. You notice that its legs are surprisingly short for its size. The Spinosaurus is clearly not built for running or swift pursuit. Instead, with its long snout and conical teeth, Spinosaurus hunts a different prey. On the bank, the animal bobs its head into the shallows, dipping its snout below the surface. The creature hunts for fish, a prey for which it is well suited. Compared to other carnivorous dinosaurs, the Spinosaurus nostrils are further back on its skull, allowing it to lower its snout into water without sacrificing breath. The creature may also have a network of nerves within its snout, allowing it to detect prey moving through the water. Perhaps the Spinosaurus hunted similarly to a modern heron. Standing at the edge of the water, it remained perfectly still with its snout submerged, waiting for the telltale vibrations of nearby fish. As you watch, the Spinosaurus lunges forward, splashing into the water. There is a brief struggle, and then it raises its head, clutching a large Morsonia in its jaws. The enormous fish struggles with all its might, but the Spinosaurus chomps down. Rounded fangs slice into the flesh. The long arms, with wicked claws, raise up to slash at the fish's body. The fight is soon over. The Morsonia slumps defeated. The Spinosaurus drops it to the ground and begins to feast. For a long while, you watch the Spinosaur eat. The glade is quiet now, but for the crunch of Morsonia bones. As the animal is absorbed with its meal, you decide that perhaps it's time to move on. Slipping down from the trees, you creep into the forest. Soon, you find the tracks of the Paralititan once more. Leaving the waterways, the giant sauropods left a trail of disorder in their wake. You are dismayed to see other footprints shadowing them. The second set has 3 toes, which means a theropod, probably a carnivore hunting near the pack. You move on cautiously. There's every chance that Deltadromeus is lurking about, still seeking a juvenile. You keep a sharp eye as best you can, but stick to the shadows. Alarmingly, the stench of blood soon appears on the wind. The breeze blowing into your face and down towards the river carries the metallic tang of a fresh kill. Creeping from tree to tree, you seek out the unfortunate sight. There, in a clearing, you spot it. A dead Paralititan, just a baby, lies on the ground. Leaning over it, the enormous bulk of a predator stands on 2 feet. For a moment, you think it's the Deltadromeus, continuing some murderous spree. But it's not. This is something larger. The creature glances up. You see now that the hunter is Tameryraptor, or Thief of the Beloved Land. It is a theropod dinosaur, standing on 2 legs, with tiny forearms. Its head is shorter than Spinosaurus, but more robust. A small horn emerges from the nose, and low ridges run along the snout. The animal is about 8 meters long, or 26 feet. It rivals the Deltadromeus in length, and certainly outclasses it in weight. The name of this animal is particularly fun, because it's based on an ancient Egyptian term. Tameri means the beloved or cultivated land. It's one of the common terms for the Nile Valley during the Pharaonic period. Combined with the Latin raptor, meaning thief, the Tameryraptor is a fun addition to prehistoric Egypt. Tameryraptor belongs to a group of dinosaurs known as Carcharodontosaurids, or shark-toothed lizards. Far less famous than the Tyrannosaurids, they are nonetheless a fearsome type of animal. Their skulls are slender, all the better to get between trees, my dear. Their bite will puncture, driving deep into flesh and crushing the bones of smaller animals, like the juvenile Paralititan that has fallen prey to this hunter. The Tameryraptor bends down to rip great chunks from its flesh. Swallowing them whole, it takes its time. A creature like this has little to fear. Except Your heart skips a beat as you hear a familiar hiss. Coming upwind, the Spinosaurus has appeared at the edge of the clearing. The Tameryraptor looks up with a start, a ragged chunk of meat hanging from its mouth. The air goes still as the two great predators assess one another. You try to hold your breath. Spinosaurus snarls, a clear and distinctive challenge. The Tameryraptor seems to consider meeting that threat. However, the Spinosaur has the unmistakable advantage in size and weight. A fight between these two would be fierce, but probably one-sided. The Tameryraptor shifts its weight and begins to back away. The Spinosaurus relaxes ever so slightly, seeing its victory underway. Then the Tameryraptor lunges, not at its rival, but at its prey, snapping its jaws down over the dead Paralititan. There is a ripping sound, and suddenly Tameryraptor disappears into the trees, a huge piece of the body clamped in its jaws. What's left is a few ragged chunks, a paltry prize, hardly worth fighting over. The Spinosaurus, much larger but also much slower, does not give chase. Satisfying itself with a hollow victory, it approaches the remains of the juvenile. You turn away as, once again, the sound of breaking bones fills the clearing. You've seen enough of these animals. Perhaps it's time to get out of here. With the sun shifting towards the western horizon, you wander off through the trees, seeking the rest of the sauropods. Soon you'll be back home in your own time. For now, you just have to keep walking. Behind you, a shadow flits between the trunks. Deltadromeus is still on the prowl, and it's getting nearer. Thank you for listening to this mini-episode of the History of Egypt podcast. I hope you have enjoyed a glimpse of Egypt before antiquity. Around 100 million years ago, northern Africa had a far different environment. Still, traces of this history survive, preserved in rock for the sharp eye to find. If you know where to go, you can catch glimpses of this amazing, vanished past. For the fossil enthusiast, one of the best places in Egypt is the Bahariya oasis in the western desert. Here, large rock formations preserve features of the ancient mangroves and their animal inhabitants. Bahariya is where the first Spinosaurus fossils emerged, along with sauropods like Paralititan and the theropod called Tameryraptor. Of course, the star of this region, its most distinctive species, is Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. This animal first came to light in the early 1900s when a German paleontologist named Ernst Stromer led excavation work at Bahariya. He published the Spinosaurus in 1915. Stromer discovered many fossils and named many species from his trips to Egypt. Sadly, the fossils for Spinosaurus and others eventually went to the Palaeontology Museum in Munich, Germany. In April 1944, Allied bombers struck that city, and the museum suffered terrible damage. Spinosaurus and many other fossils were obliterated. For decades after, the Spinosaurus languished in obscurity. Academics knew of it, and they discussed Stromer's publications of the findings, but with no physical specimens surviving, there was nothing to examine or analyze. It wasn't until 2014 that scientists could begin to re-evaluate the Spinosaurus. I released my initial version of this episode in 2019. Back then, my description of the animal was based on a 2014 study of new specimens excavated in Morocco. A study led by the paleontologist Nizar Ibrahim argued that Spinosaurus was largely aquatic. Following that picture, I built my vision of the animal, primarily submerged, swimming through the swamps. That picture has changed substantially. Or should I say, it's come under heavy debate. Starting in 2020, a variety of studies have come forth arguing the finer details of Spinosaurus' skeletal structure and how it likely moved. Computer modeling of the animal's body, its physical adaptations, and how those would function on land or in water have led to certain conclusions. Long story short, the current argument points away from Spinosaurus swimming through water and more towards Spinosaurus hunting from the land. Now that's a rabbit hole of its own, and it's outside my academic specialty. But if you're interested, I'll put references in the episode description. For the Spinosaurs generally, both the Egyptian one and other species, I can recommend a new book. In 2025, Doctors David Hone and Mark Whitten published Spinosaur Tales, the biology and ecology of the Spinosaurs. That's an accessible overview of what is currently known about these animals, their ecosystem, and the various discussions about their lifestyles. Dr. Hone also has a podcast called Terrible Lizards, which covers all manner of species and new paleontology discoveries. In October of 2025, that podcast released an episode also called Spinosaur Tales, so you have options for the material. For the other Egyptian species, there isn't much yet in the public sphere, mostly academic articles. I've put some links in the episode description should you wish to know more. Today, I focused on the early Cretaceous period, around 100 million years ago. But there are plenty of other species from different eras. For example, the sauropod Mansurosaurus, or Mansura lizard, lived during the late Cretaceous, the final phase of the dinosaur era. This long-necked herbivore measured approximately 10 meters, or 33 feet, and weighed 5 metric tons. That was discovered by scientists from Mansoura University at the Karga Oasis and published in 2018. Similarly, there was the giant creature Stomatosaucus, or mouth crocodile. As the name suggests, it was a crocodilian animal, measuring approximately 10 meters, or 33 feet. Its most noteworthy feature was a large, pouch-like sac underneath the snout. This may have been used to capture or swallow prey, like a modern pelican. Alas, the only known specimen of Stomatosaucus was excavated by Stromer in 1911, and it too fell victim to the bombs of 1944. So we don't know much about this crocodile, for now. Finally, there is the Tameryraptor. This is an interesting one. The fossils for Tameryraptor were discovered by Stromer in the early 1900s. And at the time, he considered it a species of Carcharodontosaurus, or shark-toothed lizard. But in 2025, the animal was re-examined and reclassified as a new distinct species. Tameryraptor was christened with its pharaonic name, Thief of the Beloved Land, and it represents the newest addition to the prehistoric menagerie. Anyway, Egypt has a lot more to offer than just human history. The landscape of North Africa was a diverse and productive environment. Today, paleontologists across the region are uncovering new finds, producing new studies, and re-evaluating past works. The future is quite bright for this part of the world and this phase of history. This won't be my last version of this episode. As new finds come to light and scholars keep refining their picture of Spinosaurus, I'll come back to this again, and probably again after that. For now, I hope you've enjoyed this updated look at Egypt's dinosaur species. And for those wondering, yes, at some point in the not-too-distant future, I will do an episode about the Valley of the Whales. That's about 40 million years old, so much younger, but it preserves a beautiful variety of marine life. I'll get to that episode as soon as practical, but I'm less familiar with the aquatic mammals, so it requires more background study. Anyway, that'll happen eventually. Thanks for listening, and may the great Sobek, Lord of Crocodilians, and presumably patron of all reptile species, protect you and your loved ones. I'll see you soon.